At my graduation, every seat was filled except the ones reserved for my parents. They were on a cruise with my sister instead. Months later, my mom held the box I'd mailed them, and the note inside ended our family for good. I always thought my graduation day would feel cinematic, like one of those heartfelt montage endings in a movie. Proud parents waving from the stands, camera flashes popping like fireworks, my name echoing in the auditorium, followed by that long, grounding hug from the people who raised me. But life rarely follows the script. If I'm honest, I should have known better. The warning signs weren't loud or cruel. They were subtle, like background noise I learned to live with. Take birthdays. Mine usually meant a store-bought cake, sometimes even the wrong name scrawled in frosting, and a sorry, long day at work excuse from mom. My sister's birthdays, though, full themes, catered food, friends invited, gifts wrapped like Christmas morning, or family dinners. When my sister landed a summer internship, we spent 45 minutes dissecting every detail: her boss, her projects, her wardrobe. When I shared I'd been working 2 jobs to cover tuition, the response was, well, that's adulthood. Good practice for the real world. It wasn't overt neglect, just favoritism on a loop. The constant message, her achievements sparkled, mine were barely maintenance. And still, I kept telling myself graduation would be different. This wasn't just another ceremony for me. It was survival. I wasn't the golden child, the naturally brilliant one. Every step through college was uphill, grinding through double shifts at a diner and tutoring high school kids just to scrape enough rent and still make it to class half awake. When I got that official email, "Congratulations, you are eligible for commencement," I ugly cried in the library bathroom. The kind of crying where your chest caves in and your face burns. For once, I had something they couldn't brush aside. A milestone they couldn't compare away. I told myself, this time, they'll show up. They have to. I did everything possible to make it easy for them. Sent the date months in advance. Printed the official invitation with that heavy gold university seal and mailed it home. Emailed them parking instructions, hotel recommendations, even a schedule of the speeches. Mom texted back a single thumbs-up emoji. Dad never responded. My sister joked in the group chat, "Guess we'll be roasting in the sun forever, LOL." I forced a laugh in return, trying not to notice the emptiness in their lack of enthusiasm. Still, I held on to hope. Graduation morning was beautiful, clear blue sky, just enough wind to keep the heavy gown from suffocating me. My roommate's parents were already outside when we left, her mom waving a glittery homemade sign, her dad juggling a DSLR camera like paparazzi. They pulled me into photos, insisted I stand in the middle like I belonged. "Where's your family sitting?" her mom asked brightly. I lied without missing a beat. "They're just running late. But they'll be here." As I filed into the stadium with the others, I kept scanning the stands, searching for my mom's wide-brimmed hat, my dad's ridiculous wraparound sunglasses. Each roar of applause as names were called felt like a reminder of what I didn't have. When my name finally echoed, my name, Bachelor of Science, I forced a wide smile for the cameras, shook the dean's hand firmly, and walked across the stage. The applause was polite, generic, the kind you give a stranger at a recital. No one stood. No one screamed. And that's when the knot in my throat swelled. Afterward, I slipped away behind the gymnasium while my roommate basked in hugs and tears from her family. I pulled out my phone and dialed home. Dad answered on the second ring, his tone cheerful, casual. "Hey, kiddo. What's up?" I swallowed. "The ceremony just ended. Where are you guys?" There was a pause, then laughter in the background, my sister's laugh, light and careless. I caught the clink of plates, a faint sound of waves. "Oh, right," Dad said like it was nothing. "We're on a cruise. Your sister got that new job, remember? We wanted to celebrate before she starts. Timing worked best this week." The words landed like a slow-motion punch. "You skipped my graduation for a cruise?" I asked, my voice tight, almost breaking. He chuckled, the way people do when they think you're overreacting. "Come on, don't be like that. We'll celebrate when you're home. Take you out to dinner or something." Something inside me shifted then, not a shatter, but a fracture. A hairline crack that had been forming my whole life, finally splitting wide enough to let in the truth. They never saw me the way I wanted them to. Maybe they never would. So I did what I'd never done before. I smiled, though he couldn't see it, and said evenly, "Then don't bother showing up to my future either." There was silence on the line, heavy and awkward. Finally, he snapped, What's that supposed to mean? But I was already pressing end call. Standing there in my gown, diploma folder heavy in my hands, I realized I had celebrated alone. And maybe, just maybe, that wasn't the tragedy I thought it was. The thing about my family is, I always saw the pattern, but I never wanted to admit it. It's like staring at a tilted picture frame. You tell yourself you can live with it, but eventually, it's all you see. The cruise phone call broke something in me, yes. But the truth? I had started preparing for this long before. It began 6 months before graduation. I was walking home from my late tutoring shift when my phone buzzed. Group text: Mom, Dad, my sister, and me. The message was a string of photos. My sister in a sparkly dress at some corporate event. Caption: So proud of our girl. Champagne toast to her future. Dozens of heart emojis. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard. I had just gotten an email that day confirming I'd finally completed the last of my degree requirements. It felt huge, monumental. I typed, I got cleared to graduate in May, and hit send. Silence. For 3 hours, silence. Then Mom finally replied, That's nice. We'll talk about it later. So excited about sister's name, promotion. I stared at the message until the words blurred. That's when the idea for the box started forming. I bought a plain wooden box from a craft store, unvarnished, unremarkable. Something that looked almost like a keepsake chest, though empty at first. Slowly, over months, I began filling it. First thing inside was a copy of my tuition bills. Not because I expected them to pay, it was just proof. Proof of the loans I signed on my own, the checks I wrote, the nights I chose overtime shifts instead of sleep. Next, I printed photos. One from every year of college. Me at my desk with textbooks stacked like bricks. Me working the diner night shift. Me presenting a research poster to a half-empty room. I captioned each photo on the back in small, neat handwriting. Year 1, 40-hour work weeks and intro to chemistry. Year 2, tutoring every night. GPA climbed to 3.6. Then I added something personal, a letter I'd written to myself freshman year. I had forgotten about it until I found it while cleaning. It read, Don't quit. No one will clap for you. But that doesn't mean it's worthless. I folded it carefully and placed it in the box. And finally, the note. The note wasn't long. One page, typed, printed on crisp paper. It said, Dash, if you're reading this, it means you missed something important. I wanted you to see, not just hear, what these last 4 years looked like for me. I worked, I struggled, I fought for every step. I asked for so little in return. Just to be seen. Just to be celebrated once. If you opened this box months ago, maybe there was still time to change how this story ends. But if you're reading it now, then you already chose where you'd rather be. So understand this. I will not keep knocking on a door that never opens. My graduation was my door. You closed it. Please don't ask why I'm pulling away. It's all written here. This is not anger, it's clarity. I signed my name at the bottom, folded it neatly, and slid it on top of the pile. Then I sealed the box, wrapped it in brown paper, and mailed it to my parents 3 months before graduation. Tracking showed delivered. No one mentioned it. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not my sister. The box was swallowed whole by their silence, just like every accomplishment of mine before. On graduation night, after that phone call, I thought about the box constantly. It gnawed at me. Did they even open it? Was it sitting somewhere under a pile of Amazon packages? Or worse, was it tossed aside, unopened, because it didn't have my sister's name on it? That thought haunted me the most. The weeks after graduation were quiet. My roommate's family mailed me a framed photo of the ceremony, me smiling in my cap and gown. They wrote, Proud of you, even if we barely know you. That one broke me in the best way. It meant strangers had seen me more clearly than my own blood. I dove headfirst into job hunting, sending applications, setting up interviews. It kept me busy enough not to linger on the absence. My phone stayed quiet, except for the occasional text from Mom asking if I'd heard about my sister's job training or Dad sending a picture of the cruise buffet. Not once did they mention the graduation. Not once did they say, Sorry we missed it. And in a twisted way, that silence confirmed everything the box had been meant to expose. Then, 3 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, Mom stood there, hair messy, makeup smudged, holding the wooden box in both hands like it weighed 100 pounds. Her face was pale, eyes glassy. She whispered, Why didn't you tell us? And I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of the absurdity. The box had been sitting in their house for months. The words were right there, sealed and waiting. I stepped aside silently, letting her in. She clutched the box to her chest like a life raft. We sat down at my kitchen table, the box between us, the note still taped shut inside. I pushed it gently toward her. "Go ahead," I said softly. "Read it out loud." Update 1. She hesitated, fingers trembling against the tape sealing the note. I sat across the table, arms folded, watching, but not saying a word. For once in my life, silence was on my side. Finally, she peeled it open. The crisp sound of torn paper filled the room, louder than the hum of my refrigerator. She unfolded the page with hands that shook just enough to betray her composure. She started reading. At first, her voice was steady, like she was skimming an email. But by the third line, I worked, I struggled, I fought for every step. Her voice cracked. She paused, cleared her throat, tried again. But the words kept betraying her. By the time she reached, "Please don't ask why I'm pulling away. It's all written here." Her tears had already dropped onto the paper, smudging the ink. I didn't move. I didn't hand her tissues. I didn't comfort her. I had comforted her my entire life. When Dad shouted at her, when my sister belittled her, when she felt like no one appreciated her sacrifices, I had always been the one to soothe. Not this time. This time, the silence was hers to sit with. When she finished, she folded the paper slowly, carefully, as if it were fragile. Then she placed it back in the box and looked at me. Her lips parted once, twice, but no words came out. Finally, she whispered, "We didn't know." I tilted my head. "Didn't know what?" Her eyes darted down, shame pooling there. "We didn't know how much you were carrying, how much you needed us." I let the words hang in the air, heavy and desperate. Then I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. "You didn't want to know." Her face crumpled at that. She stayed at my table for over an hour, alternating between silence and half-hearted apologies. The words, "I'm sorry," slipped out of her mouth so many times they became meaningless, almost like static. I wanted to scream at her, to demand where all this urgency was when I called them on my graduation night. But my anger had burned out long before. What was left wasn't fire, it was cold, clear distance. At one point, she said, "Your father, he feels awful too." I raised an eyebrow. "Does he?" He never reached out. He didn't know how. I laughed bitterly. He knew how to book a cruise. That shut her up. Eventually, she stood, clutching the box like it was an anchor keeping her upright. Can we try again?" she asked softly. The words landed between us like glass. For years, I had begged in 100 small ways for this, for them to see me, to acknowledge me. Now, when I had already closed the door, she wanted to pry it open again. I didn't give her an answer. Instead, I walked her to the door, opened it, and stood silently until she stepped out. Before leaving, she turned back. Her face looked older than I remembered, lines deeper, eyes swollen. "We love you, even if we didn't show it." I didn't reply. I closed the door. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every second of her visit. Her tears, her stammering, her desperate insistence that they simply didn't know. But all I could think about was the months that box sat untouched in their house. The graduation ceremony they never showed up for. The voicemail they left about shrimp buffets while I stood alone in a crowd of families. Love without action, without presence, it's just a word. And I had finally stopped chasing words. The next morning, there were 3 missed calls from Dad, 1 from Mom, and a long text from my sister. Her message read, "Mom's been a wreck since last night. You didn't have to be so cruel. She's been crying all morning. Maybe if you stopped being dramatic, we could all move forward as a family." I stared at the screen for a long time before typing back. This isn't drama. This is reality. If the truth feels cruel, maybe that says more about you than me. Then I put my phone face down and walked out the door to my job interview. At the interview, the manager asked me the usual questions: why I wanted the position, how I handled stress. But then he asked something unexpected. "Who do you admire most in your life?" The answer that almost slipped out was no one. But I caught myself, smiled faintly, and said, honestly, myself. Because I kept going, even when no one else believed I could. He blinked at me, then slowly nodded. That's a solid answer. Walking out of that building, I felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't looking over my shoulder for applause, for validation, for someone else to cheer me on. I had become my own witness. That night, Mom texted me a photo. The wooden box sat open on their dining room table. The papers, the photos, my freshman letter to myself, all spread out. Next to it, 2 glasses of untouched wine. Her caption was simple: "We're trying to understand." For a second, something tugged at me. The old instinct, to forgive, to fold back into the family, to believe that maybe, this time, things would change. But then I remembered standing alone on that stage. I put my phone away without replying. Because for the first time, I realized I didn't need them to understand. I just needed to move on. Final update. It's been 6 months since that knock on my door. 6 months of ignored calls, filtered texts, and long silences that used to terrify me, but now feel like peace. I promised myself I wouldn't write another update, but the way everything unraveled since my mom read that letter deserves closure, for me, if not for them. My dad's apology. 2 weeks after Mom showed up with the box, Dad called me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. "Son, your mother's been emotional. You know how she is. Let's stop with this nonsense and get back to being a family." Not once did he say he was sorry. Not once did he admit fault. To him, it was all just nonsense. That message told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't reaching out because he missed me. He was reaching out because my absence made Mom cry. And he didn't like the inconvenience. My sister's outrage. My sister, Ava, doubled down. She sent me walls of texts accusing me of being ungrateful, selfish, and dramatic. According to her, my parents gave me everything, and I was throwing it back in their faces because I didn't get the same attention she did. She actually wrote, "Of course they celebrated me. I'm successful. You're average." I didn't reply. Her words used to cut me to pieces. This time, they slid right off. It was like realizing a bully's fists don't hurt anymore once you stop stepping into the ring. My mom's visits. Mom tried twice more to visit. The first time, she brought homemade soup. I didn't open the door. The second time, she slid a card under it. Inside, she wrote, "We should have been there for you. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try." I didn't throw the card away. It sits in a drawer, unopened since. Not because I want to reconcile, but because it's the only evidence that maybe, just maybe, she finally saw me. But seeing me now doesn't erase decades of choosing not to. My own life. In those 6 months, I've built something I never thought possible: a chosen family. Friends who show up without being asked. Colleagues who cheered louder for me at a small promotion than my parents ever did for my graduation. Even neighbors who noticed when I bought a new car and congratulated me. It's strange how the simplest acknowledgments from others can heal wounds that your own blood refused to touch. For my birthday, 3 friends took me out to dinner. They surprised me with a cake that had my favorite quote written in icing: "You are enough." I stared at those words longer than I should have. And for the first time, I believed them. The envelope they never opened. A month ago, my mom finally admitted something in a shaky phone call I let go to voicemail. She said they had gotten the box months earlier, before my graduation. She said it had been sitting in the corner of their living room, unopened, while they packed for their cruise. They knew it was from me. They just didn't think it was important. That voicemail broke something in me, but not the way it used to. It didn't break my heart. It broke my last thread of hope. Where we stand now, I haven't blocked them, but I also haven't replied. Their words and actions are no longer part of my daily life. I don't wait for their approval. I don't ache for their affection. I don't shrink under their neglect. Silence used to feel like punishment. Now, it feels like freedom. The note inside the box. The note that Mom read aloud that first night ended with this line: "If you can't show up for me now, please don't show up for me later. I won't need you then either." I meant it. They didn't show up when it mattered. And now, I don't need them to. So here's the truth I finally accepted. Family isn't defined by blood. Family is defined by who claps when you succeed, who sits with you when you're broken, who shows up without being asked. And in that sense, despite the parents who chose a cruise over my graduation, I am not alone. I have a family. It just doesn't include them.